part 6, making the beaded loop, attaching the ear wire, and we'll also do part 7, which is adding the beaded fringe. So to create the loop that's going to attach to your ear wire, you're going to add 5 Miyuki Delica beads at the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This can be a design element. If you want to make it into a contrasting color, you can do that. I'm going to make mine red. So I have my 5 beads strung on, but I'm also going to string on my gold ear wire. Now what you're going to do is put your needle through the bead on the right-hand side of that top row. And if you pull tight, that should make a little loop there. Okay? And now what you're going to do is you are wanting to get your needle and thread all the way down to the very corner here. So the way that we're going to do that is by stitching down through all the beads on this side of our triangle. Pull tight. Keep going. Okay. So now our thread is in the same place as our tail. So we're still going to ignore that tail from the very beginning. We're not going to do anything with that yet. And now I'm going to show you how to add your beaded fringe. So according to my drawing, my beaded fringe is basically in the exact same color patterns as my ladder stitches. So it's pretty easy to follow. However, we do need to count. So I have, this is my ladder, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So knowing a little bit that I do about beads, 12 beads is a very short fringe. So I'm going to say for every one grid here, that actually represents 2 beads. I'm going to make a little note for myself, 2 beads. So that means that instead of 12 beads here, we're going to do 24. So 24 beads for the first row of fringe. This part is a little tedious, and this part takes the most amount of thread. So I'll give you another example of how to tie on and tie off your thread. So you're going to thread 24 beads on, in my case. Okay. So now what you're going to do is you're going to separate the last bead from the group. Bring him down there. So you're going to skip over that last bead and then pass back up through all the rest of the beads in your fringe. Go ahead and pull tightly so that the beads are lying flat against one another, the fringe and the ladder beads. And now we're trying to get our needle and thread to be coming out of the second row of ladder. So in order to get over there, we're going to go up through the ladder that's right next to us here, up through that stack, and down through the next stack. So I am dangerously close to the end of my thread. So I'm going to show you how to tie off again. This is looking a little stiff as I'm hanging it, dangling with it. You want it to have a little bit of movement because that's the whole point of these beautiful fringe earrings, is that they flow beautifully in the wind. So if it's too tight, it won't have any movement. So it's about striking that balance. So we're gonna tug on it a little bit so that it moves nicely. Okay, that's pretty good. So now we're separating that tail from the very beginning, which we're still not dealing with yet. We're gonna put that off till later. What you're gonna do is find the nearest thread bridge, which in this case could be either side. It could be that first one or the second one. I'm going to work with the second one here. I'm going to pass under it, create a loop. If I pulled all the way tight, I wouldn't have a loop, so don't pull all the way tight. Leave that loop there for yourself, and then pass your needle back through the loop and pull tight so that your knot is being created on that thread bridge. Now I'm going to make a second knot for extra reinforcement. Loop and through the loop and pull tight. And now we have this tail that we need to conceal because we don't want to have a pair of earrings with a bunch of strings hanging off of them. So you're going to go through the nearest stack, put your needle up, pull as tight as you can, but not too tight so we don't break any beads. And then go ahead and just weave your needle through whatever beads are closest. Weave up, thread your needle up into the body of your woven piece of brick. I would say a good centimeter. And that's to secure that tail. And now we'll use our scissors and cut the rest of it off. If you have a smaller pair of scissors, I recommend that, but you can use household scissors, is just fine. But now we need more thread. So we're going to do what we did before. Wind off some thread. Thread it on our needle. And this is the most important time for you to really stretch out your thread, because if you don't, your fringe will have lots of kinks in it, which is not desirable at this point. So we're threading our needle. Okay, success. Stretching out my thread so we don't have any kinks. I'm going to go ahead and tie on to the thread bridge that I didn't tie on to before. So in this case, that's the first thread bridge. If you tie too many knots onto the same thread bridge, then it becomes bulky, so I recommend tying off and tying on different thread bridges. So I'm going to leave myself a little tail here. Let's try not to get these two tails confused. Make a double knot. One. Oh boy. Get him out of the way. Get her back in the mix. Beautiful. Good. So now what you're going to do is take your needle, and we want our thread to be coming out of the second stack of ladder So if I go up the second stack of ladder, it's going to come down the third stack of ladder. So that means that we're going to go up the first stack of ladder. I'll orient us back to the way that we were before. Now we have all these confusing tails, but I think we can figure it out. So we're going to go up that first stack of ladder. We'll put our tails aside. And now you're going to go down through that stack. And then you'll go ahead and conceal that tail that we just made from our new piece of thread the same way that we did before. Okay, so now I'm oriented to continue doing my fringe. I'm going to show you one other way that you can end your fringe, which I've also outlined in the step-by-step instructions. So I'm going to go ahead and add, in this case, not 24 beads. We already did our 24. Now we're increasing by 2, but according to this grid, 1 square equals 2 beads. So those 2 squares equals 4 beads, so we're going to be increasing by 28. So I'll go ahead and thread 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 28 beads. Okay. Except I'm going to add, let's see. Okay, so we have 28 beads. I'm going to discard my diagram. I'm going to do some free jazzing here because I want to show you how to add a little accent to the bottom of your fringe. I have my 28 beads on there. I'm going to add 3 pink beads because I'm going to show you a way to make a little flourish at the bottom of your piece of fringe if you choose to do that. So go ahead and separate the 3 pink beads from the rest of the piece of fringe. You're going to pass over all 3 beads this time, and then you'll go through all the beads in your stack. And I'll show you the little effect this creates if you choose. You don't have to do this, but it's another little design element you can play with if you like how it looks. You might not. So now we'll pull tightly, but not too tightly. And you can see here that that makes a little miniature triangle at the very bottom. So that's something to play around with, if you can kind of see that there. Creates a little bit of weight to the bottom. So you'll just continue in this pattern of going back down, up through the ladder, down through the next stack of ladder, all the way across till all of your fringe is completed. And now we still have our little pesky piece of tail from when we made the first row of ladder. And we need to deal with that. Let's pretend I've already dealt with this. That's from when I added on. I'm going to pretend I already dealt with that. Goodbye. But we need to deal with you. You need to be knotted and you need to be tucked away. So what you'll do is go ahead and thread your needle onto that piece of tail. Hang on a second. Okay. Got my needle on my little piece of tail. So now what you're going to do is you're going to go through in between stack number 1 on the right and stack number 2 on the left. You're going to go through that stack and create a loop. And we'll want to inch that loop down toward the bottom because that's where the thread is coming out of. And then you'll just go through that loop and make sure that the knot itself is being created at the bottom of the ladder stitch and at the top of the fringe, right in that tiny space. It'll require a little bit of maneuvering on your part. You'll do 2 knots there. Make sure that's really secure. And now you can go ahead and take that and thread it up into the body of your woven piece. And again, I like to go ahead and weave up about half a centimeter, half a centimeter, well, maybe let's do a whole centimeter just to be safe. Okay, so then you can weave it up and then cut. My needle fell off. Oops. Where's that guy? Okay, needle back on. It's all part of the sport. We're gonna weave into the body of our woven brick piece, and then you can go ahead, cut it. And you'll do that when you're all finished. You'll do the same knot we just made. You'll go ahead and knot it once you come all the way back to here, back to this place. You'll go ahead and make a knot at the intersection of the last 2 ladders as well, and then you can weave it back up into the woven portion.